Welcome back to day number 2 of DevOps, Dev Days, and Cyber Wise. I don't know why I strolled that for a second. Europe 2024. Whew, sorry, a little bit too early in the morning. I'm sure a few of you have filmed that as well. That is the need for a caffeine booster, so definitely get it injected in you because we've got a long day of very knowledgeable sessions ahead of us. In fact, we've got 6 other stages going on right now at the exact same time, but you don't want to go anywhere. We've got team leads here in hall number 5. I worked it out. I've done maths, dangerous thing for me. Works out that we're looking at probably about 30 to 32 hours of content today alone, and there's no possible way any human being can consume that. Maybe you're the myth, the legend that can do it all at once, but if you're not, don't worry. Those recordings will be available later on after the event is finished online, so you'll be able to get your hands on that. Is, of course, the final day of the online segment. Tomorrow, as well as Thursday, are going to be taking place live from Vilnius, so hopefully some of you have got tickets to that. I'm sure it's going to be an absolute blessing, a place to be. But we're blessed to have so many sponsors to this event, without whom we could not be doing this. So we're going to run through those quickly. Big shout out to our platinum sponsor, of course, Progress Software. We have a bunch of golden sponsors today. It's happening again. We've got Swedbank, Cloud AMQP, Dev Expert, So Cyber, Revolut, and then our bronze sponsor of the event is going to be Svitla Europe. We also have 2 in-kind sponsors, which is going to be Battery as well as Telia. Now, it's one thing to watch these back afterwards. It's another thing to get the full value out of them now. You have to remember this is a networking event in the moment in these talks when you can actually Q&A directly with our speakers at the end of each session, but also do not forget to make sure that you are rating these sessions and also taking this opportunity. When you see someone talking in chat and you've got similar ideas, reach out. The whole point of these events, to get the value out of them, you have to engage, you have to network. But now it's time to plug in and engage with our first speaker of the day. It's my pleasure to welcome Andrea Jensen. She's a QA manager, and she's here to provide tips and tricks for junior leaders.
Hey, Darren. Hello, everyone. So, my slides are there. Okay. So then let's kick this off. As Darren said, I'm a QA manager. I'm fresh in this new leadership role, and I just finished my first year of being into management, into a leadership role. And in that time, I learned a lot, which I've never learned in any leadership course. And yes, I did courses before, but that they didn't provide me with the situations I had to deal with in reality. So in case there are some junior freshman managers here listening to that, I hope my tips and tricks will find you well. They will support you. And if you are an aspiring manager, if you think, well, leadership could be something in my career which I could see myself in, maybe take this talk as some heads up, as some warning, what you will face sooner or later in your career, and consider carefully if that is the thing you want to go. I don't want to disencourage you, but I just want to paint a true picture and not this wishy-washy version we see in leadership courses. And with that said, I'm getting my slides up and running. So if you, let me see. Okay. For some reason, they don't work. Darren, could you give me a little hint, maybe, how I can get them?
Yeah, do you want to try maybe... you might be able to share screen. Sometimes we have this. If you present instead, it might work.
Yeah, I can. Maybe I stop sharing and start again.
Yeah, try that.
Okay.
So good. This works out perfectly. It gives everyone more time to filter in.
Yes.
So let's see. Fingers crossed. There's the first slide.
Oh, yeah.
There we go. All right. I'll let you get to it.
Okay. So sorry, folks, for that interruption. So testing and production. I love it. Okay. So first of all, not too many words about me. I'm Andrea. I'm into tea, books, and traveling. I'm working in the maritime industry. If you want to reach out to me, you will find my contact details here below. You can also reach out later after the talk and ask me questions if you want to. So don't be shy, please. And with that, getting started. So as I said, I'm new in leadership. I just finished my first year I was promoted last May 2023, and when I started my new job in the same company I'm working for years, I was a bit nervous how everything would go. And I will walk you through one of my typical days I encountered throughout the last year, give you experiences, give you little stories what happening, share my learnings and my tips and tricks for you. So imagine it's early Monday morning. I'm about getting started. I'm in the office at 8 a.m. Yes, I'm an early bird. And I start to turn on my computer. I have a fresh cup of tea next to me. It's the best way for me to start my mornings. And I'm going through numerous emails, notifications, and also I'm checking what is on my calendar for the day to see what the day has to bring for me. With that getting started, let's move on to the first message I receive on that day. It's one of my favorite people in the office, so I start with reading that mail first. Ooh, congratulations. That's really nice to see. As I said, I was a tad nervous in the beginning when I started my move from a product team tester into a QA manager, forming a team of testers. We never had a test team before in the company, in the organization area I'm working in. So that was quite interesting how to build everything up from scratch. And I was also a bit nervous to see how my colleagues, how my old team, how my old boss, but also last but not least, how my new team will react upon the changes to come. How do they like to work with me together? How much do they like to join a new test team? So it was really nice to see those kind of messages because I know there are people out there in the company, in the office, who are having my back, and that sometimes just helps you to start new journeys if you know there is someone who is there for you. Then let's move on with the next message. That one is not so cheerful. It's in fact from one of my new team members. Earlier the week or the week before, I sent out one-on-one sessions scheduled for everyone to check in, to get to know each other better, to work closer together, to see how everyone is standing and how we can get this test team started. So that was the idea. Turned out one of the team members wasn't really a fan of chatting with me, having a call, checking in what's going on. The explanation was, well, the old manager never did that. So if you just could skip the meeting because they don't feel like, that was my first very interesting situation I had to go through. It happened in my very early days, and initially I had no idea how to react. It took me a couple of minutes looking at the screen, breathing. Breathing is always a good tip I can share with you. Personally, I have always this instant reply idea in myself. That is not always for the best. So sometimes breathe, think a bit, and then take your time to reply. That is also super helpful. I'm trying to apply that whenever possible. So I was thinking, what shall I do? Shall I do what the old manager did and just don't have a meeting because the person does not feel it? Or shall I say, well, I'm the new manager, right? So if I tell you we meet, then we meet. Well, that doesn't sound really right to me. I don't want to have a manager like that myself. And personally, that also does not reflect who I am as a human being. So my third option was then to start a conversation. Why is that so? And that was ultimately also the thing I did. Asking questions why the person does not feel to have a chat with me. And ultimately we got this sorted. That was more like a bad timing rather than they don't want to chat with me. But it took me a bit of time, a bit of questions, a bit of asking around what is going on initially. And after I got sorted this little message, the next one is already waiting for me. So we are here in our product channel in our product chat, and there's the dev who has a question. They created they asked changes, they implemented everything. Now they're waiting for the code review because we do code review. We want to have a super good quality software and play along the rules. But they were not really sure how that can be tested. And when I hear the question, hey, how can that be tested? I instantly feel that's my call because firstly, I'm a tester as a profession. I'm around in testing since 2011. I'm part of this product, and I joined the role of a QA lead just very recently. So I thought, well, the question is for me, right? But while I was sorting the other requests with the meeting, I was a bit too slow, and the dev lead had my back. So I didn't need to do anything. So they told the dev, well, that's not a problem. I do the code review, which is really nice, which I really appreciate. But the second half of this message is where my problem starts. There's no UI change, so it does not need any testing at all. That's where my problems start, because also testers test non-UI things. We test all sorts of performance, security things, also APIs, which don't have any UI at all. So I thought, well, that doesn't sound right with me. And maybe that's my call to start a conversation with the dev lead, because that is also not the picture or the idea I want to share with my test team, that it's okay to be overruled by a dev lead if they think testing is not important enough. So what I learned from the two things in the early days, I need to be prepared to be doubted and tested in my new role, because it can happen that people don't want to work with me, don't want to have a chat with me, or think they're smarter than me. Or ton of other options are also available here. But that is really something I really learned early on. So be prepared to be doubted and tested. And my tip for you is, if you are in this situation, set your limits and set your boundaries. You can do this in a friendly and kind and firm manner at the same time. Sometimes it's not clear that there's a limit or a value crossed, because no one crossed this before. So I did not know that I had this limit, but that was happening in the last 12 months. And whenever I have the situation, someone is crossing a limit, someone is crossing a value that matters to me and I believe in, I start having a conversation with the folks, explaining why this matters, why I think that's important, and so on. So limits and boundaries are super important. And never ever, please, when you take one thing away, then this, don't say, oh, for the first time it's fine. On the second time, I will say that's not okay. People won't understand. Be firm at the first time. So let's move on. We got the requests sorted, and now it's time for the first meeting of the day. The first meeting of today is my team meeting. We have this once in a week where we connect, where we chat. We are a remote team. We are spread around continents. And I just like to introduce you to the team first before we jump into the meeting. So we are a test team out of 6. We are located on 2 different continents and 2 different time zones. And we are from 2 absolutely different cultural backgrounds, which make things very interesting. We learn a lot, but also we have interesting conversations. In total, we have 3 different native languages we were brought up with. In general, we speak English in the team so that everyone has the chance to participate in the communication. And as I said in the beginning, that was the first ever test team we have in this organizational area, in our business unit, and we never had that before. So it needed a bit of groundwork to set everything up. And I thought, well, a test team meeting would be a great connection for all of the testers from the different product teams to share their ideas, to share their obstacles, to exchange on what is new and cool. That was my initial idea. In reality, it didn't turn out like that. My very first meetings are almost like on the slide. Everyone was muted, some turning on the cam, some not. I was talking into a void, and very seldom I had a reply. I was feeling like I ran a podcast show, not knowing if anyone out there is really listening to me, if there's someone, and lacking the feedback. And as a newbie in management, really feedback is super important because we need also feedback if we are new in this role to see how we are doing. The weeks were going on and on. The meeting didn't change really. When I asked team members directly, yes, they would act or interact and exchange, but only if I asked them. There was very little of spontaneous conversation. I got a bit desperate because I was not sure, is it the connection because we're on two different continents? Do I need to give it a bit more time that everything will be transmitted? Is it maybe a cultural aspect of working together? Is it maybe unusual? Or, and that was the thing I was fearing the most, or I was like most tensed about, is it me about the manager that I'm not able to create the trust and the safe space in the team they need to open up and share their opinions? So in a nutshell, relationships are really hard. As a team, we have never met in person still today. We had the idea of meeting next week together in one location. So we planned to bring half of the team who is located in India to our German office to meet the developers, the product managers, the other testers, and also the management team. Sadly, the visa office had different ideas on that. So we are not going to meet. We hopefully meet end of this year. But building trust in a remote team can be really, really tough and hard. So I did a bit of research and asking my friends in the community. And they were coming up with some ideas like asking random questions, not so super personal, and let everyone decide what they want to answer. We did that a couple of times in our meetings. By that, we learned each other to know on the personal level. We learned who are the Pokemon Go players in the team. Who is the one who needs to start the Monday morning a bit slower? Who's the bookworm or who would like to travel the world? That really helped us to know each other as a team better, to get some idea who's the other little rectangle we're talking to regularly beyond the testing work. From that on, it started to get easier. Also, other team members volunteered doing little personal interactive sessions, which really relieved me because I started to get desperate. So I really needed this little success that I'm not totally a total fail as a team lead. Our latest little experiment is that we started a snack exchange. So one of my colleagues was going to the Indian location and I was packing some bags with some typical sweets from around here, sharing it with them. In return, I received this super pink, plushy, fluffy plush cat that is now living on my desk in the office, and I really love it. Given the feedback from the team, our snack exchange seems to be a success, and it really helped us to connect on the light-hearted side beyond the testing work. So that was a nice thing. That was my little nice success. But still, relationships are hard and require continuous work. So my tip, if it doesn't work on the first try, don't get desperate. Just try with a different attempt. And don't be shy to ask for help. Now, our meeting is over and it's time to head on. Meanwhile, while I was at the hour in the meeting, a lot of new requests piled up. I received new emails. People were texting me on Slack. And because I was in the office, people saw me and walked by my desk and want to have a chat with me. So there's a lot of things piling up. And while I'm used to have a busy schedule since I joined the company, well, when I moved into this new leadership role, it felt like everyone wanted to have a piece of me. Everyone requested me into meetings, sent me for your information emails, even though I didn't need the information at all, or just wanted to have a chat about certain smaller topics out of the blue, which I was not really prepared for. So in the first weeks, I really felt that I lost absolutely control over my calendar, because I was like 50 to 70% of my time in meetings every single day, and I couldn't get anything done. So in order to get control back about over my calendar, I needed to do something. And still also today, there is this constant stretch between fear of missing out. Maybe I should go to that meeting to get really important information. And then when I was in this meeting, I leave it by thinking, well, this meeting could have been an email that should never been written. So there's this constant stretch to understand, where is it really needed to go, and where can you just ditch it? So my lesson learned from that is, decide what not to do is equally important as to decide what to do. I had to learn to say no, because I was clearly in the road of overwhelming and overwork. And I was sure, I knew after the first weeks, that's a pace and that's also a workload I will not continue for a long time in a healthy manner. So as much as I like to join into meetings, getting new informations, watching outside my little tester box what is going on in our company world, I needed also to limit myself in order to not overwork myself. So my learnings and my tips and tricks are, allow yourself the rule of 2 feet. If you're not familiar with that, if you are in a meeting where you cannot contribute, or where you cannot learn anything, be a self-responsible human being and get out of this meeting. I know it does not work for every meeting. And yes, I have meetings where I wish I could get out of, but I have to attend. But the more you apply that, the easier it will be to say no, and it frees some time in the calendar. The other thing is the Eisenhower matrix, where you have 4 quadrants to decide what is the most important or most urgent things you want to do. And on the lower left side, you have this little quadrant. If you put anything in there, just ditch it and don't do it at all. If you want to learn more, Google it. There's a ton of resources out there who explains you how to apply that. And lately, I'm learning about stakeholder management. To know who are the people I need to keep very close to me and continuously informed, and who are the people I maybe like to have a chat with, but they don't need so much attention, they don't need so much of my time, and they are fine with being just occasionally informed what is going on. That also helps to limit and balance the work I have to do. So that was a full morning, right? Now it's time for a break. And yes, in my office, we are very punctual. We always have our lunch break at 12. And yes, I also have a calendar entry for that, because otherwise I will probably forget about it. I'm just wondering about the second reminder that is popping up on my screen, because I was pretty sure that our product meeting about the testing process was scheduled for the afternoon after the lunch break, and not on the same time. Because I try, as I said just a minute ago, I tried to get control back over my calendar and blocking my time and not allowing to have a booking in the lunch break whenever I can avoid that. So I was sitting at my screen wondering, what is going on here? That doesn't look right. A moment later, it hit me. I said it's early Monday morning and my beginning of this talk, right? So on a Monday morning, yes, I'm entering in the office, but the weekend before we had this daylight saving time change. That is the concept of moving from summertime to wintertime twice a year, which we do here in Europe. Also, Americans do that. What I was not aware of until last year, India doesn't do that. They only have one time zone for the entire country, for the entire year in and year out. They don't move between daylight saving time, summertime, wintertime. So, since our calendars are not synced, they are in different time zones, that screwed up a little bit our calendars, and everyone was a little bit confused. I'm trying to explain what a wintertime and what a summertime is, and they're trying to figure out what the hell I'm talking about. So it took us a little while to wiggle around the calendars, and I was absolutely not prepared for that because I did not know the context of India, that they don't have this time shift, which is so used to me because I was growing up with this all my life. So I was just not aware that there might be areas in the world they don't have they are not doing that. And yes, it sounds embarrassing if I say it like that, but that's the way it is. But since then, we are always safe on daylight saving times because I still remember my embarrassment that I didn't understood that, and I'm now making 3 times ahead sure that we are all safe and know that. And that was really a story I had to learn, that the context matters. And here's just another example for you, that the context which your team is in, which you are in, and where the company is in matters to you. So you see this number, it's 1 million, but the number doesn't say much. I mean, for me, it's a big number, but that's it. If I add a little information to that, it says annual salary of 1 million. To me, in my German context, doesn't sound bad. Adding my currency, the euro, in it, oh, well, that sounds a really good salary. So if you're in Germany working in tech and you're earning 1 million, you're probably a happy person. At least I would be a very happy person. But I said half of my team is in Germany, the other half is located in India. So I'm also involved in salary increases, negotiations, merit increases, promotion cycles in the Indian location. And I have to understand how much 1 million Indian rupee is here. To me, this number feels still big, but I have no idea about Indian rupee. How much can I buy for 1 million rupee? I don't know. I've never been to India yet. Hope I can change that. But I also have only very limited understanding about the cost of living there, about the value of the currency there. So I thought, well, I can convert this. Google can help me with a lot of online converters. So converted it into euros. It's 11,000 and some hundreds. This as an annual salary in Germany would not create any excitement for any worker in tech. But I still don't know. Is this a high salary? Is this a moderate salary? Or is it a bad salary for my colleagues in India? I absolutely don't understand the context. So I had to learn a lot about that. Gladly, I have colleagues in India who can help me to understand that, and we have some instruments in place to understand the cost of living there and also the general level of the currency, so that we know so that I can, as a team lead, understand if my team members have a good salary. But I only learned that in the first merit cycle I was part of, beginning of this year. So also here, the context matters. It's not only about the number, it's also about the currency and also about the location where you use it. So the context really, really matters. And there are tons of unknowns we don't know as a junior leader. And there are probably tons of unknowns out there. Some managers who are in management still don't know, even though even though they're in the role for a couple of years. So as a tester from a profession, I grew up as a tester in tech. We are so familiar to unknown unknowns. We are always aware that there is an aspect in the application we probably don't know about or in the requirement. So we learn to ask a lot of questions. And I'm trying to transfer this into my day-to-day job. And also as developers, as tech people, if you're reviewing requirements, if you see a new application for the first time, there are tons of unknown unknowns out there for you. And you will go through them, ask questions, and digest from what you can learn from that. And I feel when we're moving into the management role, we need to be aware that this still applies also in the team lead role. So because you really don't know what you don't know until one day it hits you and you learn more about it. So my tip for you, be aware that there's probably something you don't know about the context. So, but now finally, it's time to have a lunch break. And I said, in our location, we take the break seriously. So on sharp 12 o'clock at lunch, we will meet for the lunchtime, whoever's in the office, and grab something. Breaks are super important, especially if you're new in a role, because you have tons to digest, new informations to process, and you really need a breathing time to get everything sink in. So take breaks seriously, otherwise you will break. And my tip for you, you can't pour from an empty cup, so take the breaks to refresh and to reset yourself and relax. And if it requires to set a calendar entry that you have a lunch break that reminds you, like I do, then do it. Now, fast forward, lunch break was nice, but let's hop into the afternoon. So I'm back from the lunch break, back on the desk, checking my mails. And hey, there's another request from my boss. So apparently there is tomorrow a board meeting I was not aware of. And he's asking for some numbers about a project. Telling me, you know what, by the end of the day would be fine for me. The thing is, he's located in a time zone where it's just his morning. He's in the US. And for me, half of my day already passed. So I probably better get started to make it until the end of my day because I don't want to work in the late evening. So I'm getting to pull out the numbers. And my lesson from that is that initially, when I started in my new role, I had maybe for the first 10 minutes only, but I had this idea of having freedom. I always thought, once I'm a team lead, well, then I will have freedom. I won't have check-in calls every morning. My boss asking me, "What are you going to do today?" I mean, I don't have them anymore, luckily. But I thought, well, that would be freedom. Very soon, I learned that's a bit of an illusion of autonomy. Yes, it is true. In my role, building a new test team from the base on, I have a lot of freedom in my business unit. How we want to organize ourselves, how we want to collaborate as a team, how we split the work among us. The team and I, we can decide very independent. On the other side, there are activities or tasks where I even have less freedom than I had before, like pulling out just quickly some numbers for the sake of a board meeting. So my tip and trick for you, don't forget, there will always be someone you have to report to. Even if you're in the team lead role, there will be another manager level you have to report to. Most likely, if you're in the lower or medium management, there is another level of management you have to report to. There might be a CEO you have to report to, and even if you are one day a CEO, a CTO, or whatever role you like to see yourself in, there will probably a supervisory board, an advisory board, or legal authorities you have to report to. So yes, there is autonomy, but it's not limitless. And while I'm now talking about the benefits of being in management, especially in lower level management, I also want to include the frontline management perks. So if you're not familiar with the word frontline management, I just briefly explain that. Frontline management is used by some companies. They like to use it for the lower level of management. So if you're a team lead like myself, you may be called frontline manager. This is understood as building the bridges between the executive leadership team. You see here the three people. That is the board, the executive leadership team. They have those visions and strategies and idea, how they want to develop the company. And then on the other side, there is the team. They're the people who are working in the daily operations. And as a frontline manager, you're somehow the messenger in between, or you're building the bridges from the vision, from the strategy, align it with the daily operations, split it up and dice it up in smaller tasks, and share the message with the team, which do then the daily operations. On the other side, you are also the advocates of your own team. If they have issues to deal with, they cannot sort themselves. It's also the job of a frontline manager to convey this message back to the leadership team. So we're building bridges. That sounds like a nice picture, right? But while I said we are the managers between the two parties, that also sometimes can feel like this. That does not look so much fun, more like the building bridges, right? Sometimes you're also tiptoeing through a minefield while conveying the messages. For instance, I just give a random example that doesn't happen in reality, but I cannot share real cases. So when your leadership team or the board sends you an email, hey, frontline managers, good news. We decided that every team member will wear a pink shirt on every Wednesday. Then you have to convey this message. Doesn't sound like a bad one, right? But what if you don't agree? Like, for instance, for myself, I don't like pink as a color. I don't have a pink shirt, and I even don't want to buy one. And personally, I like to decide what I'm wearing on the day myself. But still, you have to convey those messages. With some of the messages you might not be aligned with some of the messages you even don't like. So, what do I want to say? You need to be prepared to deal with dilemma. I'm personally not a very diplomatic person. I'm very straightforward. That's ingrained in my personality, but also in my culture. So for me, that's sometimes a really tough call. There's no silver bullet how you want to do that. You need to find your own way. My personal way is that I'm not Willy Wonka. I cannot sugarcoat bad things. But that's about me. So, but let's move to some more happy things. As a frontline manager, I'm also still hands-on working in the operations. That's something I really enjoy. So here's a request from earlier today to test something. So I started to get testing. While I'm in the testing, I received a call from one of my team members inviting me into a call with a developer to get my opinion. That's really nice, but I'm also switching contexts quite frequently. So also throughout the day, you have seen that. Emails, meetings, short notice requests, jumping into testing. There's a lot of context switching. Personally, that is something that really brings me a lot of joy in my work. I really like the diversity of my activities, of my task, and I really enjoy that no day is equal to the other. It's never getting boring. But also context switching can come with some cost, so that the mental load is really high and you have exhaustion and feel tired. So the best tip I can give you, plan for it. Plan your calendar, batch test things, and if you need some time to work uninterrupted without any one pitching in, mute your notifications, book yourself a room, or work a couple of hours from home. So the next thing, I bump into a colleague in the afternoon, and he's one of my network people in the office. So we are going for a drink. We haven't chatted in a while, so it's really nice to catch up with each other and see how we're doing. When I started to get into this new role, I deliberately was looking for a mentor in my company, someone I could share my thoughts, my learnings, and also my obstacles with. I also have folks who are also quite new in the leadership role in the same company that I am, so we can catch up regularly with each other. And also, I have now some allies in the Indian location to explain me and help me with the Indian office culture. So that is really useful. So build yourself a network and don't be shy, ask for help. You will need it sooner or later, trust me. And that's it. That was my day. That was it. It was one, right? Was a lot of interactive, a lot of interesting interactions, a lot of good stuff happening, but also very challenging stuff happening. And that's one of the basic days. I just have one little small thought I want to share with you before I call it ultimately the day. There is the idea of leadership and that is also ingrained in the wording. We are climbing up the food chain. We are climbing up the career ladder, that this is a one-way road. And I just want to emphasize, is it not? It is not. Let me go back. Sorry. So it is not one-way road, because if you're in leadership and you feel that's not your job, you don't want to do that. You have the opportunity to step away. I deliberately don't say step back, because step back does always sound so bad. It's a really good decision if you feel I'm in leadership, but this is really not the job I should do. I want to be a dev, I want to be a DevOps, I want to be a tester. Then do that. Then step away, find yourself another place. Because if you're unhappy with where you are, move, because you're not a tree. I mean, unless you can be Groot, then be Groot. So thanks, folks. That's it. If you want to connect, feel free to hook me up.
All right, thank you, Andrea. Folks, if you do have any questions for Andrea, use the Q&A section now, click across the tab, and then type them in, and I'll relay them. Really cool way of opening the day. First thing that kind of got me chuckling was when you were going on about the time zones and discovering they didn't have time zones. It reminded me of the time that I discovered that Beijing Standard Time is something China considers real, which is BST. That totally made me turn up for an event very late. But out of all the tips and tricks you were giving there, I'm kind of curious, like, what is the most important one in your opinion? If you had to choose one that taught you the most, that helped you the most?
It's all about the people ultimately. So build trust with if you have to pick one thing where you put your energy in, work with the team, build relationships, build trust among the team. If they have you and you have them, and they know you will have their back, they will also have your back. And I think that's the most important thing.
I think something that leads on from that's quite nice is the thought of, when you were climbing into the leadership role, I think, there's a lot of kind of feelings going around about like, how do I approach this role? What kind of route do I want to take? Because I think there's usually two types, right? There's kind of molding to the environment or molding the environment or being molded by it, right? Like, it's that kind of, do you integrate yourself into what already exists, or did you try to establish your own methods and enforce them on the environment?
Yes, that's an interesting aspect. I think that really also depends when you move into leadership. So I am with my company for, oh gosh, 9 years now.
Yeah.
That's a long time, right? So I just breathe the culture generally. So I was more of the attempt like, well, if I now move into this role, I can really shape and I have bigger influence, and I really wanted to shape the things that really matters to me, but I could not really put them into practice when I was in the product team because I was working only with my product team devs, and they were like, nah, I don't like that. No, I don't do that. Now I can say, well, hey, we have a team. If we decide we want to do that, we can do that. So, but if you are new in a company and you are hired as the team lead, I would recommend start firstly with observing what is going on because you need to really get an idea. Um, I mean, I said I'm German, I'm straightforward. I usually tip on other people's toes quite frequently. But if you're very new in a position, that could be also a risky thing you don't want to do. So try to sort out firstly what is the general culture.
That's an interesting thought, right? Because, like, you're saying you've been with the company for 9 years. I feel like we live in an age where you don't really stay with a company for a long time, right? You hop around your career a lot, and it's almost like, because people seek out that type of perspective, right? They want to bring in someone fresh from the outside. It's almost like they expect this immediate result to come out. I guess, like, for a lot of people who are in that situation, I imagine that they're experiencing that right now. Have you got any advice you could think of? Because obviously it's a different approach to what you're experiencing, where there's this pressure on them to deliver immediately upon arrival. How would you how would you say they need to go about negotiating, shall we say, with the higher ups that look, this is going to take time, and Rome wasn't built in a day?
Um, I would recommend keep a good record of what you already achieved, as small as they are. Have yourself a little folder in your email inbox called reg folder. So whenever the higher ups are asking, "Oh, what did you do?" I just say, pull this out. So you have something to show. But also, usually, if you have common sense people in the higher ups, they will understand. If you change something, it will not change immediately an entire organization because they are in the board, so they know if they just pull some numbers up, they won't see an immediate result in the next 2 days. So try to spread the word, try to emphasize, have conversations and be transparent with what you are doing and what you are aiming for, and show the little successes.
Yeah, I like that as well. Like, everyone's focused on the bigs; it's the steps that get you there. I think we did have a question coming through from Simon, but admittedly, Simon, we're cutting it very close to the next session. So definitely reach out to Andrea. She seems very receptive, so I'm sure she'll engage with you. But Andrea, absolute pleasure to have you opening day number 2, and I'm sure we'll hear from you again very soon.
Thanks, Darren. And Simon, just reach out, please. Thanks, folks.
All right, next talk in a second, folks. So stay tuned.